The Titans were rocked by injury last season, but despite that, they were still in the playoff hunt right up until the very end. Now, with an overhaul on the offensive line and upgraded offensive coordinator, how does this team project for 2023? And what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know, so go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourse, as today we're going to be taking a look at the Tennessee Titans and how they project for the 2023 NFL season. We'll be going over the coaching staff, the scheme, we'll look at the rosters, and then finally at the end, I'll give you my prediction for the Tennessee Titans. But hey, on a side note, there it is, the new office. I kind of like how it looks. You let me know what you think. A lot of work went into this. I had to build a wall. Boy, it was fun. But let's go ahead, get into this sucker by talking about the coaching staff. And of course, you got Mike Vrabel. He has been here since 2018, and he has done a fantastic job. He is very much a very culture type of guy. And that's what you can kind of see in Tennessee, man. You don't have really any concerns with the players from a maturity standpoint. And I think that kind of helps with like Mike Vrabel being a former player, like not too long ago. Like we're talking like maybe less than a decade ago, where he was well, no, it was probably more than a decade. I don't know, time flies, but where he was on the very field that those players are on now. But he has done a pretty solid job with the team. I think that semi overachieves year in and year out, especially when they're faced with injuries and such, which kind of was the case last season. But he is going to be the head of this defense. He has Shane Bowen, who's kind of been with him for quite a long time as the DC. But make no mistake, this is Mike Vrabel's defense, and does a lot of things similar to Bill Belichick. This is for all intents and purposes an attacking 3-4 defense that just seems to do a lot of things well and kind of tailors their game plan to who they're facing week in and week out. Typically, they want to be a man-heavy coverage team, though they have no problem switching to a more zone-heavy approach if that's what the game plan calls for. They can be blitz-happy if they want to be, though they were in the bottom 12 in terms of blitz rate last year. But again, it's tailor-made to when they need those things. For most of the time, they really like relying on stunts and slants and loops and stuff of that nature. But this is a very, very good defense, and Mike Vrabel has a big hand in that. I mentioned Shane Bowen, who's got the nice beard, the good smile. It kind of looks like Santa Claus in the making up there. But he's been with Vrabel since 2016 back in Houston when Vrabel was the DC. He actually was a grad assistant under Mike Vrabel when he was at Ohio State in 2012. And that was when I think Vrabel was the defensive line coach there. But really what we need to talk about here is Tim Kelly. Moving on from plain vanilla Todd Downing. And I know Tennessee fans are excited about that. But you bring in Tim Kelly, who was brought in last year to kind of be the passing game coordinator to kind of help with that, as Todd Downing was a bit vanilla, again, as an OC. But there's going to be some legitimate questions here. There are, in terms of how does this change the run game, because the blocking scheme, because this team, for the most part, I mean, Downing inherited Arthur Smith in this like wide zone that also likes to incorporate duos and inside zone, but it does a lot of different things. And you bring in Tim Kelly, who comes from Bill O'Brien. So we're going to be seeing more shotgun. We're going to be seeing more man and just downhill blocking. Or are we? How much will that blocking scheme change? Because keep in mind, Tim Kelly was here last year. He was here last year. It's not like you're bringing in a new guy who's going to just totally renovate this offense. So I know this team was much better in the red zone, and a lot of the credit goes to Tim Kelly last year he was the play caller when they were getting around the end zone. So I don't know, maybe there's some stuff to be encouraged about, but definitely there are some questions there that might need answers. Like here, first scheme, I put up-tempo spread because it is a team. The Texans, back when Tim Kelly was OC there, like this is a team that was constantly no huddle, trying to keep the defense on their toes. He marries a lot of different concepts, whether it's with the play action, leveling concepts. Again, he was brought in as the passing game coordinator last season because of his nuance in the passing game. So it's going to be very interesting, and we'll talk more about it when we get to the offense. But first, I want to shout out today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is currently one of the most premier fantasy betting apps, and they got a best ball tournament with $15 million in cash prizes. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Remember, sign up with promo code Broshmo and they will match that first deposit up to $100. They got a lot going on right now. It's not just football, but as always, bet responsibly. Let's go ahead, get into the offense, and oh man, where to start? I guess we start with the offensive line, because that's kind of where I think my biggest questions are in terms of how Tim Kelly is going to change what they do. And I think there's some things here that tells me they won't change a whole ton. So let's go ahead to my offensive starters real quick. I know Nicholas Petit-Frere, he's got the 6-game suspension, but I imagine when he returns, he comes back and plays either the right tackle or they move him into guard. It would be cool to have Skoronski go out there and play tackle. I mean, you drafted him highly enough, so you might as well play him there at tackle, but kind of is what it is. As we'll look at the depth, there's not a lot there, but this is what I imagine the starting lineup will look like in some shape or form. They bring in Andre Dillard, solid enough signing. He was stuck behind Jordan Mailata. Mailata's kind of a monster. And to be fair, the few times we kind of saw him, whether he came out and played tackle or guard for the Eagles, he looked pretty solid. So, I mean, yeah, you kind of betting on, the little bit we saw, that's going to be the guy we're getting here over a full season. But I don't mind it. Tackle was kind of a problem last season for the Tennessee Titans. They draft Peter Skoronski, phenomenal. A lot of people are like, I don't like his length that much, but it kind of is what it is. We've seen guys work with sub 33-inch arms out at tackle. Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, to be fair, both those guys I would say are a bit more athletic than Peter Skoronski, but I think Skoronski can make it happen. The dude's a technician, but I got him here at the left guard spot because I imagine when Nicholas Petit-Frere returns, he's going to end up playing right tackle. That's where he played all last season. Maybe they do move him into guard. Aaron Brewer kind of moves in here to be the center, and it's actually these two players, Daniel Brunskill and Aaron Brewer, that leads me to think that they're still going to be doing a lot of wide zone pull-in concepts here, because Aaron Brewer is very light in the pants. Very light. So this is the guy you want on the move. If you want him going to do head-to-head blocking, that's just not going to be where he wins, and it could be devastating. So he very much so you want this guy just moving. He's got good movement skills. He's a bit lighter, quick feet. I believe he played center back in college. So I think they're going to keep with some of the wide zone stuff. So that's where I'm planting my flag a little bit. Daniel Brunskill, fun fact, comes from the Niners. Kyle Shanahan, wide zone blocking scheme. So that leads me to believe they're not going to just abandon that as of right now. Let's jump to the depth real quick, because we got to talk about what this offensive line may look like without Nicholas Petit-Frere for the first 6 games of the season. Is Peter Skoronski is kind of the no-brainer to move there at right tackle. But then you look at what's going on and at the guard spot here, because Dylan Radins, he tore his ACL back in December, so he might not be available for this team immediately. As a matter of fact, I think indicators point that he won't be ready for this team to start off. So you're looking at guys like Jordan Ruse, who wasn't good last season. Jamarco Jones, more of kind of this I want to say journeyman, but I think he's only been on like 2 or 3 teams at this point. I think the interesting, call me crazy. All right, so Corey Levin was not that bad when he came in and played center last season. He really, really wasn't. How many snaps did he play? Like 251 snaps, and he actually did a pretty darn solid job. He's got experience at right guard too. Like he played 18 snaps at right guard last year. How those snaps went, I couldn't tell you. So I think it could be interesting if they move Levin to right guard. He's got a little more weight on him than, well, he's got a lot more. He's got like 20 more pounds than Aaron Brewer, but I think this team loves and doesn't want to give up on Aaron Brewer, and it kind of is what it is, I guess. It is, as my dad said, it is what it is. So I think those are options there. This is kind of dictated by how long does it take for Dylan Radins to return. So I don't know. We'll see. In terms of what else they got on the roster, they drafted Jalen Duncan, who was someone I wasn't a big fan of. I thought technically he was far from ready in the NFL, but I get why teams liked him. He's got decent length, very good athlete. Wish he would bring some of that athleticism as a run blocker, so to speak. Not run blocker, pass blocker. There we go. So kind of a work in progress. I was a big fan of John Ojukwu. See, it's been like months since the draft. I forget how to say these names. Out of Boise State. I was actually a big fan of his. I thought I had a draftable grade on him, so I like them bringing him in. But outside of that, you don't got a lot of anything. Hey, look. Look here. They got my boy from BYU. I think it was last year. James Empey, baby. So it kind of is what it is. That's kind of the state of the offensive line, or at least where I have it at. It's kind of my biggest concern, and also what I'm most interested in terms of schematically, what will they be running? We could talk about the weapons of this squad as we look in terms of the starters. I got Treylon Burks. You got Nick Westbrook Keeney. I can never say that second part, but you have him. Kyle Phillips, hopefully healthy. I think he flashed in all of 50 or 70 snaps he was on the field. I think he flashed a little bit. So I really hope he can come in. I think he can come in and be a very good slot player for this team. But even then, depth wise, they actually have good guys that can fill that role as well. Treylon Burks, I kind of hoping takes the next step, and we'll see how that rolls. I thought he flashed a little bit last season, so we'll see. And I think Nick Westbrook's he's a solid number 2 at this point. You kind of hope maybe someone can challenge him. I feel better about him as a depth guy than as a consistent guy on the outside there. So the question is, who do they have to challenge him? Well, let's take a gander. Let's take a look. Because they have Racey McMath, for all intents and purposes, he's a banger of a special team player. A guy that has traits that's just extremely raw. He's kind of, at this point, it's like, if you develop him, you get something at receiver from him, cool. But he's there because he's a really good special teamer. They did draft this season Colton Dole out of, was it Tennessee Martin? I can't recall. Let me pull this up on my draft guide from last year. I say draft guide, my Google spreadsheet. Yeah, Tennessee Martin, 6'3", 215. Dude tested out exceptionally well. I couldn't tell you much about him. I didn't watch him. But 33-inch arms is huge for a receiver. Ran a 4.42. 21 in the bench, so yeah, he can run block. 41 and a half. Oh my gosh, dude, those vert and broad numbers. This dude's gonna be explosive off the line of scrimmage, or at least he should be. And solid enough in the 3-cone and short shuttle. Had over 1,000 yards last year too, so Yeah, that's going to be an interesting guy. I can see why they went out and took, I guess, for all intents and purposes, a hometown boy in there in Tennessee. So very interesting. Very interesting. I kind of like that. But who else can play on the outside here? They got nobody. They got nobody. And this is kind of where you're like, oh, maybe D-Hop. But I think D-Hop might, I don't know. How much does D-Hop view this team as a contender? A lot of people are pitching out when it comes to D-Hop where he may go. Bill O'Brien there with the Patriots, though I think D-Hop came out and said, I really didn't have a good, I didn't have a bad relationship with Bill O'Brien, but I didn't have a great one. So that's why they pinned him to the Patriots. But keep in mind, Tim Kelly was the OC when D-Hop was there for the Texans. So maybe D-Hop, outside shot, he ends up here in Tennessee, and I think that would be great. Oh, that would be huge. In terms of, Chris Moore can be a guy that can play on that side. I think he's at his best, though, when he's in the slot. I think he makes the roster easy, hands down, like a guy that can play inside and out. Looking at the guys that are probably on the outside looking in, you got Mason Kinsey, I know, kind of a fan favorite. And he's very similar to Kyle Phillips, as very good slot pair, kind of twitched up. Brings return capabilities, but you already have Kyle Phillips on the roster. So Kinsey might be another guy that hands on the practice squad and then kind of comes in when there's injury at the receiver position. Reggie Robertson was a dude I really liked at SMU last year. Injuries have kind of derailed the hype, because I looked at this cat back at the 2022 draft. No, it was 2021. As a potential day 2 player, but injuries kind of screwed him there. You got Jacob Copeland, who is just fast vertical threat. It's kind of what he is. You could say the same thing about Gavin Holmes out of Baylor, another guy that struggled with injuries. Kyrus Jackson, good blocking receiver coming out of Georgia, but I don't know, man. I think for all intents and purposes, I don't want to include Dow. It'll be interesting if Dow makes this roster. That, if anything, that's where someone could come in. That's where maybe if they really do like Kinsey and they want more, want him on the roster, or maybe Copeland or Robertson. I think Dole, that's the spot. But just looking at the athletic and physical profile from Dole, man, I'm kind of want to say send it. Now looking at the tight end, I have Chick Okonkwo as a starter. Obviously, he's an ascending talent at this point. The dude is phenomenal. He's very versatile, guy that can line up in the backfield as an H-back and be a downhill blocker. Very good receiver. More put together as a route runner than I think people give him credit for. And I think he has a chance to shine this season as a potential lead target for this squad. Other guys they have here, Trevon Wesco, he's a blocking tight end. That's about it. Josh Wiley, I like Josh Wiley in the process. 5th round, I think that's about where I had him. I think he's a guy that has good vertical speed. He's got bunnies. He can get up to the catch point. Just a guy that didn't see a lot of volume at Cincinnati. Good build though. I still think he's inconsistent as a blocker, but I thought that was a good get. They really don't have much of note after those guys, though. Kevin Ratter, did he play for the squad last year? There's a Raider. I don't know. It was solid enough as a blocker, apparently. Wonder what he looked like as a receiver. I can't imagine much. Yeah, I didn't dive too much into this tight end position, as you can tell. I liked Chig. I'm familiar with Wesco, and I watched a lot of Josh Wiley tape since he was in this past draft. Didn't have a reception last year. Okay, interesting. No, Sound State. I don't know. Maybe. I feel like that last tight end spot, unless they keep 4, I doubt they keep 4, is Wiley or Raider. I feel like you give it to Wiley at that point. Of course, you have one of, if not the best running backs in football in Derrick Henry. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, how can you have this squad 21st to 26th offensively? And it's like, questions. That's what it comes down to. Questions. I mean, I feel comfortable with Derrick Henry being able to run in really whatever blocking scheme. But again, questions with the offensive line, questions with the playmakers. We'll get to questions when I talk about the quarterback. But let's go ahead and talk about just really the depth there at running back, because Derrick Henry, what more is there to say? Derrick Henry's a freaking monster. A guy who literally wears down defenses. You could probably count on one hand, if not with 3 fingers, the amount of running backs that can actually wear down defenses in today's game. And Derrick Henry is definitely one of those guys. I thought they got a wonderful compliment to Derrick Henry in Tyjae Spears. He was my running back 4 last season. I love how explosive this cat is. He's got a willingness to want, despite being slightly undersized, to want to go out and get physical if he has to. He's not afraid to bury his nose in the action. But you look at him just for that explosiveness. He showed off ball skills at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. So there is a lot to like about Tyjae Spears. He is the complement that they didn't have on this roster to Derrick Henry. And for the most part, the rest of the players on this team are just depth guys. Hassan Haskins, he's going through stuff right now because he's an idiot. Apparently, I wouldn't take relationship advice from Hassan Haskins. I'll just put it that way. But screw that. Julius Chestnut. I wasn't a big fan of Haskins anyway coming out. I thought he was like power back that didn't offer much. And he was kind of overrated in that Michigan offense. I said it. I mean, I said it at the time there too. Julius Chestnut. He actually played quite well last year as kind of a bigger back. And yeah, I mean, I think he's a good addition to have to the backfield depth, the committee there. I think Jonathan Ward's probably, if they don't keep Haskins, the guy that makes a squad. He's got receiving upside. Couldn't tell you much about Chuck McClendon. I think I saw him at the Hula Bowl. I don't know. He was coming out of Tennessee. He was a guy where it was like, yeah, UDFA. So I don't expect him to make the squad. But a big indicator of how this team does is what happens at the quarterback position, as I have Ryan Tannehill. Shouldn't be a surprise. Last year of his deal, he's going to be playing here. It's going to be interesting to see how he just adapts to this more shotgun heavy scheme. I don't think they're going to shy away from the play action, as the play action game's been just huge for Ryan Tannehill, but maybe having him do more RPOs, because people forget this guy's a former receiver. He's got feet. Former receiver there at Texas A&M. But Ryan Tannehill really is just kind of the bridge quarterback to Will Levis and Malik Willis. And we'll talk about those guys in a sec. But I think Ryan Tannehill come in, could do a solid job. Remember the year he usurped Marcus Mariota, and then the following year, I think you could have said he was top 12 quarterback. Since then, he's kind of fallen off. Last year was a bit beat up, but I still think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I think he can be a top 15, top 18 quarterback in the NFL for the squad. And honestly, I think that's fine enough as they develop the guys behind him, as we're going to look here with Will Levis, Malik Willis. So Malik Willis didn't look promising last year. He should have never took the field last year. Everyone and their mom was like, this dude ain't ready. He operates so much outside of structure there at Liberty, but he's got big arm. He's got great legs. You can see the plus when it comes to Malik Willis. There ain't no way that he should have been out there. But they had a shot and they took it last draft on Will Levis. So a lot of people thought this cat was going to be the top 10 quarterback, top 10 pick in the draft. We were talking about him potentially going to the Texans at 2, to the Colts. I mean, there was even some gab out there with the Panthers, but that died off fairly early in the draft process. Ends up falling. Titans apparently wanted to make a move into the first round to get him. They weren't unable to, and luckily they were able to make that move early into the second round to snag him. Listen, the dude's got a huge arm, throws with a good velocity. He operated an NFL style offense the last 2 seasons. One of those being under former Rams OC Liam Cohen. There we go. The dude can be mobile, sturdy build. Question is, man, dude's kind of late on passes. He can be a little bit wishy-washy. Is he gonna throw it? Is he gonna overthrow? Is he gonna underthrow? You could go back and look at some of his interceptions, and it's like, oh man, there were a lot of tipped balls there. But then you look at some of them, it's like, you just need to read that better, or you just need to get the ball out sooner. And I felt like last year we saw stretches where it was like, yeah, this guy can be a top 10 to 20 player in the draft. And there were other times where it's like, ooh, maybe you want to just take a shot on that guy in the second round. I think early in the process, prior to the season, I had him as a top 50 player, kind of akin to where I felt like Kenny Pickett should have went, and then slowly kind of moved him up again, because like it means a lot if you're able to, if you've been operating an NFL offense like for 2 years prior to going to the NFL. Like, it means a lot when you understand route concepts and NFL passing concepts already. It kind of helps, and that's why I kind of was like thinking, yeah, I think there's a good shot he ends up going early. So the question is, do they keep 3 quarterbacks? I think they're able to now with the new NFL rule. They keep a 3rd quarterback, but there was already talk that they could end up releasing Malik Willis. Fun fact. Apparently in camp, Malik Willis is outperforming Will Levis. So what do? I think you just keep them. I think it's as easy as that, and hopefully Ryan Tannehill can stay healthy, and you won't have to worry about these guys this season. But all in all, I think this offense, there's enough questions for me to be like, okay, I think it'll be a mid to below mid squad this season. But let me tell you, I feel completely different about the defense. Let's go ahead, get into it, as I love this defense. I put it there, business as usual. They're gonna be good. Like, I have them as top 11 to top 15. You might as well say top 10 at that point, because I feel like there's going to be some weeks where they are top 10, and there's going to be some weeks where it's like, they were a bit down this week. To be fair, the offense kind of let them down. But I like this squad a lot. Obviously, I love who they're being coached by with Mike Vrabel. But you look at this defensive line now that was kind of beat up last year. Like, Harold Landry missed the whole season, but Dupree was a bit hurt, but you weren't getting anything from him anyway. I thought that was a bust sign to begin with. I believe Jeffrey Simmons, did he miss a couple of games as well? Thank you, Gojo. Gojo, you all won't be able to see as much in the back because I don't have like the windowsill for him to pop out of, but he's just typically right behind me. But yeah, they dealt with the injuries last season, and it'll be great to see them coming back healthy. They add Arden Key, who's very familiar with slants and just looping concepts, stunts coming from San Francisco. So I think that's a phenomenal addition here. With Harold Landry, you got Danico Autry, who can play edge, but also could slide into that like four eye tech and wreak havoc. So it's like, I list him here as a defensive interior, but because like how many snaps last year did he play inside? To be fair, again, there was injury on the outside, forced him to play outside more than he would normally. Here we go. Yeah, so he played. Oh, even he was beat up a little bit last year, but he played over 170 snaps inside of the tackle. If you look at the year before, that with Tennessee. He did that almost 300 snaps. So I imagine we're going to see him mainly play inside. You have Jeffrey Simmons, who's just a flippin' monster. One of the best defensive interiors in the NFL. Freaking all-star. A guy that demands double teams, wreaks havoc, was a little beat up, I think near the tail end of last season. But like, this is a team that can get pressure, whether they want to bring blitzes or not. They're very good at just scheming up pressure. Like Harold Landry, even Arden Key is kind of a master of the stunt game. So I really, really love this. Even like didn't Autry had a phenomenal year last year. 54 pressures, 8 sacks. You love to see it, but it also, we could extend that to the depth on this defense as well. Looking here at the depth, as you got Rashad Weaver, who had to step up last season, and I thought did very well. I think he's one of the better rotation players at the edge position in the NFL. Yeah, 26. Was it 26? No, 34 pressures, 5 sacks. They bring in a couple of other guys here. Thomas Rush, I think he's just super undersized. DPR at best, probably should move to off-ball linebacker. Caleb Murphy, who was very productive at Ferris State. Let me confirm this is the same Caleb Murphy. Very productive at Ferris State. He just kind of lacks like some physical and athletic tools, but technically sound. Yeah, this is the Ferris State cat. So kind of a shot there that they're taking at edge, but yeah, no, man, I'm a big fan of Weaver, and I think that's solid enough. I don't have to worry about too much of these UDFAs that don't make the roster. I don't think they're going to see a lot the light of day. For the most part, Tahir Tart, very underrated. After coming out of Florida International, he was a hot name in training camp. I was going to say freshman year, rookie year, but over the last 2 seasons, it really hasn't merged. Like, his team, they don't usually have like big nose tackles in the middle, but sometimes they will ask that of their players, and Tart is that guy. The dude had he had 127 snaps at nose tackle. He's a big space here. He's more than that. Like, he's a very good run stuffer, but he's shown a pass rushing upside. He's a guy that's also played in the B gap, so don't get it twisted just because for the most part, like, they don't play a lot of guys right over top of the center, but he is in and around that spot. But 26 pressures and 2 sacks last year. This guy's on the up and up, and oh man, you really got to take note. And it kind of sucked. I really wanted to include him on the depth chart that I kind of show, or at least my starters. But he's gonna get outsnapped if healthy by Simmons, Landry, Autry, Simmons, Landry, and Key, if things go ideal. But you got to mention Tart, man. He has played hella good for the Titans. Naquan Jones, man, out of Michigan State. Like, he's solid enough, man. The dude's just a dog. I like him. Good depth guy, but outside of that, they ain't got much of anything. Couldn't tell you much about Jaden Peavy. Tyler Shelvin, another kind of nose tackle that showed some athletic traits, but has been unable to stick to a roster. Curtis Brooks was more built like Autry, coming out of Cincinnati, had banger workouts, but I don't know. He's more depth at this point than anything else. Jaleel Johnson, though, man, I think he is like the quintessential, like, if you want depth on your roster, he's a guy to have. Like, yeah, he might play 100 snaps for you, and that's fine. But like, I'm a big fan of just having him as a depth guy on the roster. I think he's a very solid player. And then we move to the linebacker core. There's no kidding who the starters there are, as we got Monty Rice, who will now flex what he can do with Zach Cunningham. Did they have Jaylen Brown last year? Well, no, they had David Long. David Long all gone. So now this is Monty Rice's game. Whose game is it? Monty Rice. He was part of that legendary trio of linebackers there for Georgia that included Nakobe Dean and Shannon Tyndall. Fins up, baby. Gotta show respect to my Dolphins. So I'm excited, man. The dude's a really good athlete, and to be fair, like, this defense just kind of asked their linebackers to be athletic, to like, hey man, use that athleticism, fly all over the field, run with guys. So I'm very excited about that. Azeez Al-Shaair is kind of built the same way, coming from San Francisco, where he was kind of stuck behind Drake Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Might be the best linebacker duo in football. Gojo begs to differ, but yeah, no, I think that's a solid enough linebacker duo right there. They're athletic, and I can't wait to see what they can do. They have Ben Nyman. He's more of a special teamer here. And really not much to talk about outside of those guys. I think Chance Campbell's an interesting name. I believe he came out of Ole Miss or Mississippi State. He was in Mississippi. I know that. I think it was Ole Miss. Thank you for confirming that, guys. I appreciate it. Moving on to this secondary, because I'm really excited about this secondary. It may not look like they have a stud at corner, but they have a solid cornerback trio, dare I say quartet. But we'll get to that. They bring in Sean Murphy-Bunting on a 1-year deal, and I think that's I think that's solid, man. He's a good addition. He's a guy that can come in, and I think he'll play well for this defense that wants to play a lot of man coverage, but they can also dip into like quarters or even cover 3 at points. This kind of maybe moves Roger McCreary to the slot for now. Perhaps, because Sean Murphy-Bunting is a guy that can play outside and in the slot. But Roger McCreary, my biggest gripe with him coming out of Auburn was, well, sub-length, a guy that can he hang on the outside with sub 30-inch arms. Typically, you don't see a lot of that. Like, really, like Dante Jackson and maybe like Darius Williams. Those are the only examples you see of that in the NFL. But I thought he did a solid enough job in his rookie year. Did he get picked on? Yeah, he allowed 7 touchdowns, but had an interception, had 6 pass breakups. I thought he did as well as you can expect, being kind of thrown into to be in the cornerback 1, because Christian Fulton needs to stay healthy. This guy is very good when on the field, but he just needs to stay healthy for a season. So those are the 3 receivers 3 corners you're looking at, but they actually go pretty deep when you look at their depth chart here, because Trey Avery, Rutgers, correct? I want to say Rutgers, man. Golly, that sounds like Rutgers. It is Rutgers. So he did pretty darn good last season. Did he allow a touchdown? I know he had 7 pass breakups. He allowed 3 tutties. It's fine, but he allowed a completion rate of 56%. Like, was thrown into starting duty as a UDFA and did phenomenal. You're gonna hear this guy's name. Like, he should be over Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley, injury concerns proved to be a thing. After coming out of college, injuries were kind of a big concern. And you know what? He doesn't look like the same player as we thought he was going to become. He's in the few snaps he had last year, I think he had like less than 70 snaps, allowed 2 tutties, one of those being like a 50-yard bomb. So he might just make the roster simply because you spent a first-round pick on him not too long ago. But there could be a case that they want to keep a guy like Chris Jackson ahead of him. He was He was a 7th rounder in 2020 out of Marshall. Out of Marshall, who, well, he hasn't been great when called upon. He's been fine enough. So maybe you value that a bit more. You have a guy like Stephen Jones, who's just super undersized. If anything, he's going to the slot out of Appalachian State, but not much really to talk about from there. We could talk about The slot role, who it could be Sean Murphy-Bunting, it could be Roger McCreary, it could be Elijah Molden, who I loved coming out of Washington. Kind of been unable to stay healthy for bits and pieces. It looks like they might be transitioning him to safety, which could make sense with Amani Hooker. I'm not positive what his contract currently looks like, but Kevin Byard also up there in years, but his playing is slipping off. Like, you ain't replacing Byard. We'll talk about that in a second, but it is Amani Hooker contract. To be fair, I really liked Hooker coming out of Iowa. Here we go. 3-year, $30 million. He signed that just last year, so he won't be a free agent until 2025. So Elijah Molden's here kind of stuck me in maybe the dime backer if he sees playing time at that. Maybe kind of be if like they have injuries at safety, could come in and play safety, because it's not like they have a lot of. If you look at the safety position, they don't have a lot of depth there. They really don't. They don't have, like, if Byard or Hooker goes down, like Mike Brown, I think he was out of Miami Ohio a year ago. Yeah, I'm sad too, Gojo, about it. Josh Thompson, I couldn't tell you much about. They did bring in Tyreek Jones out of Boise State, I believe, as a UDFA. But yeah, I think Elijah Molden kind of makes sense to move him to safety. But Kevin Byard, man, one of the best safeties I would say in the league, man. His all-around play is just phenomenal. Last season, 4 interceptions, 2 pass breakups. He's very good against the run as well. And you got Amani Hooker, who's fine. He's a good average player there. He's playing a lot in the box. Used to play slot a lot for the tight ends. Coming out of Iowa, played a lot of quarters. So, I mean, if they do, there's a team that incorporates a lot of coverages depending on what the game plan calls for. So you like that. And I mean, yeah, we'll see. But I like there's not when you look at the secondary outside of Byard, there's not really a star, especially at corner. You don't have a stud at corner, but you have a lot of solid parts there in Fulton, McCreary, Sean Murphy-Bunting, even Trey Avery. So there's a lot to be encouraged about. This defense is really, really good. That's why I have them as basically a top 10 unit in my eyes. I'm excited to see how Monty Rice plays in his first year of being a full-time starter. I hope this defensive line can stay healthy, because they're monsters. This defense is going to keep this team competitive. There's a reason why you had Malik Willis start, I think it was Monday night or Sunday night against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they were in that game until the end. Because this defense is that freaking good, which now leads me to my predictions for the 2023 season when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. They are currently 7.5. 7.5 Vegas betting odds over under. And I have them with 7 wins. 7 wins. Yeah, that's I feel like that's kind of on the money. You'd be like, well, they were unhealthy last year and they had only had 7 wins. Like, oh, well, when I got down to projections, that's kind of where I had them at. They actually have one of the harder schedules. I believe they're in the top 12. They're actually 12th in terms of strength of schedule when it comes to my projections. So, yeah, it's one of the harder, despite being in one of the easier divisions. Yeah, you got the Texans, you got the Colts, you got the ascending Jaguars. Despite being in one of the harder division or easier divisions, their schedule outside of that is a little difficult, because I mean, you got the AFC North, which might be one of if not the best division in football. When you even one of their this sucks. Their home game against the Ravens. It's in the UK. Trash. They'll be facing the NFC South, which they're not great, but still, you don't know entirely what to expect from the Panthers. The Bucks have a banger defense. They have playmakers. Can Baker figure it out? Will he have one of his miracle games? It could happen. You also have the Saints, which they're kind of mid, but still. Atlanta, who's expected to be better this year. Don't worry, I'll talk about your Chiefs at the end of this series, buddy. Yes, they are that good. But they actually opened the year with the Saints. I got them beating the Saints. Here, I'll let you out. Bye, Joe. So they get the Saints. Then you have the Chargers. Chargers, I think, are going to be hot starters. It's kind of hard to project what to expect from the Browns this season because that's a really good team. It's just, can Deshaun be Deshaun? The Deshaun of old? I don't know. We'll see. Pair that up with the Bengals. That's kind of a tough run there. You get the Colts. I have them having a win over the Colts. Then you get the Ravens before your bye. You come out of your bye, I have you beating the Falcons, beating the Steelers, losing to the Bucks. Like I said, man, there could be that random good Baker game. People sleep on the Bucks just because Baker's not good and the offensive line's questionable. It's that defense is really good. Their playmakers are really good. I think I have them splitting with the Jags. Got you beating the Panthers, got you beating the Colts. So I think you take 2 from the Colts. And I have y'all losing to the Texans. I would say you could split those. You could say Colts, you split games with the Colts, you split games with the Texans. It's basically the same thing. I had y'all beating the Colts. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Losing to the Seahawks. Seahawks will be an interesting team to monitor this season. I got my Dolphins winning. Fins up, baby. Fins up. Yeah. You can handle Tua. Look at me talking trash on a game that we won't see for another 20 some weeks. But yeah, all in all, I feel like 7's the right number. I think they can be a 10-win team. They just got a lot of questions to answer offensively. How will Tannehill look in this offense? How much of this offense will, in fact, change? And can their playmakers stay up or step up? You got Chig, who I think is ascending. You have Treylon Burks, being wide receiver 1 here. Can you step up in year 2? Can guys like Kyle Phillips stay healthy? We will see. Wait and see. Derrick Henry, though, is still a monster. And we'll see if that offensive line if that is an improvement for them. Keep in mind, again, Nicholas Petit-Frere out for the first 6 weeks of the year. Even with Petit-Frere, though, last year, the dude's got size, he's got length, he's got what you want. It's just from a technical standpoint, he ain't there yet. And hopefully you see that, maybe see him just develop in that regard. I kind of projected him anyway when he was coming out of the draft, he's probably going to start guard early on. And he ends up playing tackle right from the get-go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's fine. I think you can move him to guard because guard's kind of right guard spot's kind of wide open right now. So I don't know. That's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. And as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.